birth certificate records his name as Robert John Ball Currey, after his father, Walter Ball Currey. But he dropped the ball, figuratively speaking, when he was older. Dad didn't really know his father, as Dad's mum threw him out for being no good apparently. Dad only has one memory of his dad ever visiting when he was young, when he brought round a train set for his birthday, but my nana wasn't too pleased and got rid of it saying, "We'll buy you a better one than that." Nana, like my dad, was made of strong stuff and did not suffer fools gladly. Despite my dad growing up without a father figure, he himself became a wonderful dad, and thank God. Dad grew up in wartime Britain with his sister Pat and younger brother Don. Times must have been extremely tough for his mum, bringing up 3 kids alone, holding down a job and having to endure the relentless bombings by the Nazis. Dad, however, had only fond memories of this time and took the air raids and sleeping under the stairs to shelter from the bombs all in his stride. He told us how he loved going into the backyard the morning after the nighttime bombings to look for shrapnel and was delighted when one day he found some. His mum unfortunately wasn't quite as pleased. Shortly after the horrific May Blitz of 1941, at only age 6, Dad was evacuated to Cheshire with his sister Pat, or Patricia Mary as Dad always called her. They stayed with Mr Tom and Mrs Alice Leach in Deans Road and attended Elworth School. Dad always spoke very fondly of Mr and Mrs Leach, and the feeling was obviously mutual, because they actually asked his mum if they could adopt him a dad. Obviously this didn't happen. When I asked Dad what had happened, he just said, having gone home for a holiday in the summer of 1944, on the way out of the door to catch the train back, I just refused to go, so that was that. Kevin and I took Dad back to Elworth a few years back to revisit the house and area where he lived. It was a very poignant and emotional trip. We searched all over but couldn't find the graves, but a kindly vicar approached us and offered to look at the records. We were able to locate the graves, but it was a very bittersweet moment for Dad when he discovered that they died quite young. Tom was only 59 and Alice only 51. I will always remember that very kind, friendly vicar who couldn't do enough for Dad that day. After his evacuation, Dad was reunited with all his old pals. One of them, Clary Hunter, who still kept in touch with Dad and was very cut up to hear about his death, about the death of his oldest childhood friend, with whom he had shared so many wonderful memories. After attending various schools, including St Silas, Dingle Vale and Liverpool Institute, Dad got his first job with the War Cotton Commission in the Cotton Exchange, September 1951. Then in January 53, Dad was called up to do his national service and was drafted into the army. Only the other month I was talking to Dad as he was reminiscing. He told me, I was returning from embarkation leave. I remember it was June 1953, as it was Queen Elizabeth's coronation. I had to get the train to Lyons Corner, London, with another guy from Dorrit Street. He can't remember the guy's name. He said we weren't in a rush to get back, and I remember being told off for arriving late at the barracks. Dad hated to be early for anything, and I think I might just take after him there. After serving time in Tel El, Egypt for 6 months, he sailed from Port Said on the SS New Australia on the 24th of December 1954 to Southampton, not arriving back until the 31st of December 54. Unfortunately, there wasn't much time for New Year's celebrations as he returned to Felham, Middlesex the first week of Jan before being discharged. In 1958, Dad met Mum in the Boomerang Club, a coffee shop in Duke Street. He was out with his friend Mike Frost and a group of others. Dad didn't think he could dance, and so when he saw Mum, he needed a different reason for approaching her. Fueling by a few drinks in the pub earlier, because this was only a coffee shop, remember, Dad just went up to Mum and said, "Hi, my name's Bob, what's yours? I would ask you to dance, but I don't dance." Not the most romantic chat-up line, but that was our dad, straight to the point, and it certainly worked. Quite ironic then that today, the 29th of April, is International Dance Day. Dad would have seen the funny side and has no doubt got over his fears of dancing in public as he's up jiving with Mum at the moment. Their courting didn't go that smoothly either at first, because Dad, on what should have been their first date, sent his mate along to meet Mum instead. As he said, he didn't have any money to take her out. Needless to say, this didn't go down very well with Mum. The next time Dad saw my Mum, it was again in the Boomerang, and another guy was sitting near her, and Dad overheard this guy asking if he couldn't walk Mum home. Dad took a chance and very quickly intervened, saying, "You're too late, I've already asked her." Luckily, Mum didn't correct him. She was already smitten by Dad and didn't mention yet he hadn't asked her to walk her home. Obviously that night he did. They were married in '59 and the rest is history. A few months after Mum and Dad were married, they moved into the ancestral family home. Actually, it was a 2 up and 2 down at 23 Morton Street, Liverpool 8, which had been rented by Dad's family on the roof side since the early 1900s, and the rent book must have been passed on to each new generation. His grandfather, or Gangar, as he called him, lived there in the 1900s and was the namesake for Dad to become Laney's Gangar. Despite it being a small house with no bathroom and only an outside toilet in the backyard, Paul and I had a very happy childhood in Morton Street. I was actually born in the house. We didn't appreciate at the time though, it was probably not so comfortable for Mum and Dad, as unlike me and Paul, they couldn't have a bath in the sink. Perhaps they appreciated the fact that there was only 4 of us living there, as back in the earlier days there could be up to 8 members of the Brew family living there at one time. Fred and Petner and kids lived up the street and became lifelong friends. Our dad didn't have it easy when it came to his health. He suffered from depression and was diagnosed with manic depression, they call it bipolar today, when we were young kids. Whilst we were trying to get the right balance of medication, Dad experienced some severe lows and equally severe highs. It wasn't all bad though, as it was during these highs that my usual frugal, cautious dad would go on spending sprees. Dad was at the school where if it still worked, you didn't replace it, no matter how old or old-fashioned it was. In fact, he still has a big American fridge in the garage, which he got second-hand when he lived in Morton Street. So Mum would have to bide her time, but would always have a list of household items ready should a spending spree occur. In later years, we all had a good laugh at this and appreciated the fact that had Dad not had these sprees, we would never ever have upgraded our furniture. Paul and I particularly remember the new TV, although Paul said it was only black and white because my dad thought colour was a waste of money, and the large, ultra-modern radiogram record player, which Dad loved to play his 78s on, especially Blueberry Hill. For the benefit of our Laney, I will explain 78s were records. The seriousness of bipolar, though, should not be overlooked, as a great many people suffer from it, many in silence. My dad luckily managed to get his moods balanced out by taking medication religiously for the rest of his life, but many people aren't so lucky. It is one of the reasons we've chosen Mind, one of the many charities Dad supported for his memorial donations. Dad's career was centred around the cotton trade, starting with his first job in '51, as I said, at the Royal Cotton Commission in the Cotton Exchange, and continuing through to retirement in '99 from Raleigh Brothers. I remember Dad telling me how he always remembered his first salary being £2.15, which in our money, £2.75. Dad had a great head for figures and excelled at maths, something we believe our Laney has inherited from him. He was delighted when Laney told him recently that she had been put in the top set for maths at her new senior school. Dad was a grafter and practically ran one of the offices he worked at, although he wasn't the manager, Sadly, his pay grade and position never reflected his intellect, contribution or dedication. But that didn't deter Dad from doing the best job he could. He made many good friends throughout his career and kept in touch with many throughout the years. Dad was delighted when in 2001, the Cotton Exchange was the venue for mine and Kev's wedding, as it still held many memories for him. As well as supporting many charities and working full-time, Dad worked tirelessly for the Labour Party and was treasurer of the Wood Labour Club in the 1980s. I think John Marston's tribute sums it up really well, how his work and dedication. Bob was one of the unsung heroes of the movement. He was a tireless worker for the Labour Party when Michael Foot was elected leader and gave full support to the Liverpool 47 group of councillors when they were elected in '83. Without Bob, our local Walton Labour Club would have ceased to exist. His knowledge of finance was second to none. If you took Bob to the election count, he knew what the result would be 15 minutes after they started counting the votes. It is people like Bob who are the backbone of the movement, a socialist comrade and friend, all rolled into one. Dad loved his nights out with family and friends, whether it was a stay behind at the Labour Club or stay behind at a local pub, followed by a drink and sing along back in ours or someone's house. Auntie Mary always said Dad was the best barman they ever had. Whenever they had parties in Chelwood, he was the barman, firm but fair. In his latter years, he was very content with his own company. If anyone did visit unexpectedly, he would never let them outstay their welcome, and a straightforward and honest, "You can go now," would alert any guests that it was time to go. We had so many wonderful family holidays too. As kids, there was always a big gang of us when we went away, whether it be Uncle Don, Auntie Terry, Auntie Maureen and Uncle Tony and Auntie Mary, Auntie Pat and Uncle Will, and all of their brood. All of Dad's nieces and nephews loved their Uncle Bob and always speak highly of him. We have such fabulous memories of Butland Skegness, holidays at farms in Wales and caravan at Frith Beach. One of the happiest times of Mum and Dad's life was when Shanoa gave birth to Mum and Dad's one and only grandchild on the 21st of January 2008, our gorgeous Elena May. The sheer joy shines out on Mum and Dad's face on the picture as they were over the moon with our miraculous bundle of joy. When Mum passed, Lainey was the precious gift that kept us all going, especially my dad. Dad absolutely adored our Lainey and kept every card and trinket he ever got from her. In Dad's eyes, Lainey could do no wrong. Her text brightened his life, and not long before he died, he was telling me about his latest text from Lainey, with a beaming smile on his face. Dad loved Lainey so much and was so proud to watch her grow into the lovely young lady she is today. So I just want to say again, thank you, Lainey, for being such a lovely, caring granddaughter, and I love you. Mum and Dad continued to love the weekends away and breaks and holidays, and ventured abroad for the first time in 1975 when they visited Mum's brother, John Mulhern, and his wife, Josie, in the States. It wasn't until the mid-80s, though, that they really got the bug for holidaying abroad, and obviously could afford it a little bit more, and would have many brilliant vacations with Dad's brother Don and Auntie Terry. When Dad's brother Don sadly died, Auntie Terry was still welcomed on holiday with Mum and Dad, and when our lovely Mum died in 2009, me and Terry continued the tradition and would holiday with Dad at the many places he and Mum had already stayed. It was very, very hard for Dad at first, and he would break down often, but it was part of the grieving process for Mum, and it was lovely hearing him reminisce about the time together. It helped me too, really. We will never forget celebrating Dad's 80th birthday at Las Rosas in Tenerife, where a fab time was had by all. Dad's favourite singer, Baz, was also appearing on his birthday night, and that added to the wonderful experience. In fact, I've been in touch with Baz because he's doing some lockdown videos and he's going to be doing a tribute, playing Amarillo for Dad later on today. I remember when we were away ordering an expensive bottle of champagne for Dad. I had to actually order it in because they didn't sell it in the shop, only the cheap Blanc, and surprised Dad with it at the table. When I asked him how he liked it, Dad responded in typical Dad style, "Yeah, it's quite nice, but I can't really tell the difference with that one we had earlier today." He was referring to the bottled sparkling wine left at his room by management. But Dad really loved that holiday so much. He even expressed how much he really enjoyed it weeks after we got home, so I knew this to be true. We didn't know at the time that it was Dad's last holiday, so we were delighted it was a memorable one. When Mum died, we continued family meals at one of our houses, with me and Kev, or Paul, Shannara and Lainey. Even though it was often a huge effort for Dad to join us, especially in later years as his health failed him, he never missed an Easter or Christmas or Father's Day with us. After a spell in hospital, where he actually spent his 85th birthday in October, we didn't think Dad would be around for Christmas, never mind make it for Christmas Day. But we're absolutely delighted when he did make it, and we enjoyed yet another family meal, this time with a cook-up by Kev. Such brilliant memories to treasure. Dad's life wasn't always easy, but he remained strong and optimistic no matter what ailment was thrown at him. As Auntie Mary described him, he was a stoic man. I remember only a few months ago, he was reading the summary of ailments the doctor had sent through and laughingly said, "Reading all these ailments, it's surprising I'm still here." Dad wasn't ready to go anywhere though at the time. He would go on his own terms. I think it's quite fitting as well that we celebrate Dad's life and lay him to rest during the week. We celebrate International Workers. With International Workers' Day tomorrow, on Friday, the 1st of May, and International Workers' Memorial Day was yesterday, which incidentally also coincided with acknowledgement of the 1-minute silence for all of our key workers, as well as the launching of a plaque in memory of his brother-in-law, Tony Mulhern. As in Tony's words on the plaque ring true today, "Those who put profit above workers' safety should never go unchallenged." Tony Mulhern, International Workers' Memorial Day 2019. Our dad was such a humble, caring man, a true gent, as so many of his friends and family have testified. He would be so embarrassed to hear all of these lovely tributes, as he never really appreciated how much he was admired. Even in the last few years, when Paul and I looked after Dad more, he was always thanking us. And I had to tell him and convince him it was only right, after all the years he'd looked after us, it was our pleasure. I did add, jokingly of course, he hadn't seen the bill for our services yet. When I was away on holiday last year, I was feeling particularly nostalgic about life and my dad, Tony Fitz being ill and Tony Mulhern being ill. So I wrote Dad a heartfelt email to make sure he knew how much I loved and appreciated him. I got a return email from Dad, and in typical Dad fashion it said, "I don't deserve that, love Dad." But as I told my dad on my return, and as I tell him today, "Dad, you deserve every word and so much more. You are held in such high respect by all your family and friends, and are loved so much by me, Paul, Shannara, Kevin, and of course your adorable Lane. Through her, your legacy will live on. So rest in peace now, Dad, with your darling wife, our lovely mum by your side." I'll put a PS if I don't carry on crying. Please try not to get into too many arguments, Dad, with the powers that be up there.